the Windows Media format.
Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. This is Technical Session 2, Advanced Customization. Today we're going to cover customizing the client software with the RBS utility. We touched on a little bit of that in Session 1. We're going to go much deeper into it today. Also, we're going to discuss the best file selection defaults, introduction to the setup files, and creating a client installer and installing it, fully customized. Also, we're going to create restore agents, the web restore agent and the disk restore agent, and show you how those work. I'm Rob Cosgrove, CEO of Remote Backup Systems. We also have Gautam Tiruvanallur. He's the CTO, and Gautam's going to drive this session, and I'm going to do the color commentary. So go ahead.
Okay. First thing is I would like you to bring up the documentation. If you go to, actually you can go to the website, go to remote-backup.com and /show me and open the server's manual. And once you get to the server manual, look at the section where it says customizing and installing the client software. This particular section explains everything about customization, advanced customization, changing the graphics, everything about branding, and also creating standalone restore agents, and also customizing the client installer itself. We'll go over all these in detail today. So let's start with customizing the client installer. So you go to Tools and select Customize Client Installer. This is the RBS utility. We went over the basic settings yesterday, wherein you put in the server's public IP address or the domain name, the port number, and you have to change the admin override password. That's the basic settings. The next tab is the Backup Sets tab. This is where you define or pre-customize the backup sets and pre-customize the scheduler, the purge and retention settings, the file selection method, and other things. So the software, when you initially install it, ships with two backup sets. One is called default, and the other one is blank. The default backup set comes with the auto select filter. It also has some included and excluded list items here. You can just turn on this auto select filter, and you'll see all these extensions which are already pre-included, and an exclusion list. You can choose to use these inclusion lists, or you can clear all of them and include your own extensions if you need to. Starting with the backup type, like I said, there are 4 subsections in the backup sets, meaning there are 4 tabs underneath the backup sets tab. Now all these options, the backup type, scheduler, the auto select filter, the purge retention settings, and the backup exclusions, these are all per backup set. So if you have more than one backup set defined, you'd have to change the backup set and make sure all the options are set correctly for each backup set. Let's create a new one. You can, if you're not going to use the existing backup sets, I would recommend either deleting them. So you can actually click on the delete set and say yes to delete, and it will actually remove it from the database, the client database itself. Or you can create a new backup set. You can click on new and give it a file name, the backup set name. Let's call it daily incremental, for example. And let's say you want to configure this backup set now. With version 10.1.68, the version that you're looking at, and which is due in a couple of weeks, you can just start off with incremental backup, and the first backup will be a 4. So it used to be that even with the current release, incremental will not get all the files during the first run. Basically, because incremental looks at the archive flag, so it doesn't necessarily get all the files during the first backup set. But we made a change in the upcoming release wherein you can start out with incremental with archive.it, and if it's the first backup run, it's going to pick all the files. So it's going to do a first full backup. So you define the backup type here. So you can start out with the incremental backup, and incremental will only select files based on files that have changed. Differential, the only reason why you would need to use differential is if the customer or the end user is using, let's say, a tape backup solution. Now, if they're using a tape backup solution, in most cases, they also rely on the archive bit for file selection. And whenever you do a backup with any software, it resets the archive flag after the backup is complete. So if they use some other backup solution, then you have to use differential and run our software, the remote backup software first. The difference between incremental and differential is it will still pick files based on the archive bit, but differential reset the flag after the backup is complete. So that's the only difference. So if you run our backup first in differential mode, it will select files that have changed and it won't reset the archive flag. So if you can run tape backup or other backup solution after remote backup, and it will still be able to select files that have changed that day. So that's the only reason you would use a differential. In most cases, everyone either chooses incremental or they use the bit backup. Now, you can schedule it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, set up the startup time for that backup job and the attempt window. And we recommend using the Windows Task Scheduler. So select this option and leave it as a local system account. Once you set it to use the Task Scheduler, and when you build the installer and when the client installs it, the first time the client wakes up, it automatically creates the scheduled task after the installation is complete. So you don't have to go into the scheduler on the client side and do any changes. So the client automatically creates the scheduled task in Windows. So make sure you select the Use Task Scheduler option in this window. There is another option here called Make Default. What this basically means is, let's say you're doing bit backup and you want to set the threshold size to 50%. If you click on Make Default, it will make that bit backup option as the default option for any new backups that get created on the client side. So on the client, if you create a new backup set, it automatically takes the threshold size of 50% by default. So you can make it as a default option for any new backup sets. Any questions on the scheduler, the backup type?
No, that's good.
Okay. Moving on to the auto select filter. The auto select, as you know, is a file selection method that the client uses based on file extensions. So you can turn on the auto select filter, and you can basically include or exclude any files that you want to back up. So you can drill down and include all the files that you want to back up or exclude any files that you want to skip. And the client basically does a scan of the entire drive and selects those files. Now, the override auto select, like we talked yesterday, if you turn this to yes, the auto select will only apply to folders that you basically include with a green check. So instead of scanning the entire drive, it's only going to scan within the folders that you include. Now, if you don't find any extension or a file extension in this list here, you can add your own extension at the bottom here. You can name it and include the extension. So it automatically includes it in the list. Let's see. Moving on to the retention settings. In most cases, almost everyone needs to have the keep latest version of all files online. This is a very important setting, and the client, as long as this option is selected, it will make sure that there is at least one version of all the files available for restore. So it'll maintain one copy of all the files on the server. And it kind of overrides the purge options. So let's say if you set the purge files older than 365 days, let's say you do a backup today and that file never changes for the next year. So after 1 year, that file gets qualified for purge because of this option, purge files older than 365 days. But since that is the only version of that file available, it will still retain it. So the keep latest version, because of this option, it will still retain that file. Now you can either choose to purge files older than the number of days, or you can set by number of backup sets or backup sessions. Um, so if you set it to number of backup sets, it'll basically retain the last 5 backup sessions or the last 5 backup sets online. So anything older gets purged, but it'll still also maintain one version of all files because of the keep latest version of all files option. So these two are mutually exclusive options. You can either choose number of backup sets or you can choose purge files older than option. Again, there is a make default option, so you can click on that make default and that will be the default for any new backup sets that the user creates on their end. There is also an option called purge if deleted or unmarked. What this means is, let's say a user deletes a file on his system and that file has been backed up to the server. Now, if you select this option, since the local system doesn't have that file anymore, it will purge that file after the retention period. So if you set the retention to 7 days, then it will keep the file for 7 days. On the 8th day, it will delete the file from the server too. Because the file is no longer there on the client system, it will also remove it from the server. You have to be a bit careful when you select this option. Because I think you have to either set the retention like 30 days, in which case the file will be available for restore in 30 days. But after 30 days, if you select this option, it will get purged from the server. Let's see. So moving on to the advanced option, compression level, I would say leave it as medium. A compression level of low, meaning it will compress the files. The compression level will be low, meaning the size of the file that gets transferred will be bigger in size. If you set it to high, the file size reduces, but the processing time increases on the client side. So the optimum setting is medium, so I would recommend leaving it as medium. The file selection method, there are 3 different file selection methods. Archive bit, in most cases archive bit is the way to go, but if they have some other backup solution or file or tape backup solution, you can either choose between modified date and time or fast pick. Choose modified date and time if the number of files is less than 10,000. But if you have like 50,000 or 100,000 files, then select fast pick. It also gives you a kind of a message saying it's recommended to use this only if your file size is greater than 50,000 and only in cases where archive bit cannot be used. So you have to basically pick your file selection method. In most cases, archive bit would work. And so moving on, that's the session quota. The session quota is the amount of data set to 100 megabytes. What that means is
we lost audio for about 5 seconds.
Oh, okay. Where did you see the file selection criteria?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to explain the file selection criteria again, or are you clear on this?
And you were getting ready to start the session quota.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the session quota by default, it is set to unlimited. But if you want to limit the amount of data that can be sent in one session, you can put in some numbers. Like if you don't want the client to send more than 500 megabytes in one session, then you can set a limit to the amount of data. So if you set it to 500, the client can only send up to 500 megabytes of data in one session. So if anything else that was skipped will be backed up in the next session. But I would recommend setting it to unlimited unless you have a reason, maybe because of bandwidth issues or because of the plan that you have. Let's say you have a plan of like 1 GB storage for a client, and if a user signs up a 1 GB account, he shouldn't be sending more than 1 GB anyway, so you can set it to 1 GB. So in any case, you won't be backing up more than 1 GB in one session. So you can set that session quota option, and log off and shut down, you can set these options. And that's again, all these options are per backup set. So if you have more than one backup set, each has its own retention settings and
Gautam, why would we want to
filters.
use the session quota?
To limit the amount of data that can be sent, and like in case like if you have a plan of a 1 GB plan or something, and you know the user is not supposed to send more than that, then you can limit the amount of data that he sends in one session.
Okay, so this would be something, I see two reasons for this. One of them would be to prevent somebody with an awful lot of bandwidth, maybe more than you've got at your server, from monopolizing all of your upstream bandwidth during a backup window, which is, typically 15 hours overnight. And another reason would be to make it a part of the backup plan. So you could have a really inexpensive plan for, say, $19 a month that had a backup quota of 500 megabytes, a session quota of 500 megabytes, or you could have a more expensive plan with a higher session quota.
Okay. Moving on, let's take a look at the backup exclusions. We covered this yesterday. You can include wildcard file exclusions and type in any extensions that you don't want the client to back up to your server. Most commonly, everyone chooses .sys, .tmp file, anything that starts with the tilde symbol. So you can put tilde. I mean, some temporary files start with the tilde file. You don't need those files to be backed up. So in JPEGs, image files, video files, you can include all those extensions. And you can also include folder exclusions. Let's say you don't want the client to back up anything that starts with a temp. So you can put temp star. That means anything that starts with the temp will be ignored by the client. There are different formats. You can take a look at that format in the help file, or you can click on the F1 help, and it shows you all the formats that you can type in the files starting with. So anything that starts with temp, you can include it like temp star, and files ending with anything that ends with some characters by file extension, and by wildcards you can exclude. Or similarly with folders, like folders that exactly match with a string, folder that starts with a string, folder that ends with a particular character, and folders with exact match. So and you can also use this virtual folders, and I would recommend selecting all of these. There wouldn't be any reason to back up any of these virtual folders. So doing all this, I mean, after you set up all these exclusions correctly, it doesn't matter if the end user selects the entire C drive, because you know all the data that's coming in will be the data that he actually needs, or the data that is valuable, because you're already excluding all these virtual folders. So you know for sure that even if he selects the entire drive, it's still okay. The backup is not going to take that long. So this is a good advantage. So you don't have to drill down on the client computer and drill down to the actual data. If you have your virtual exclusions list configured correctly, you can as well select the entire C drive if you have to. So that's the backup sets table. Again, all these are per backup set. So once you made your changes, click on apply. So it takes into all the changes are applied in the database itself. Any questions on the backup sets? Any of these tabs?
No.
Okay. So let's move on to the change text. This is where the branding and the customization actually starts. The company name, this is the name that appears in all of the forms, all the client interfaces. This will be the name of all the interfaces. So you can put your company's name. Let's say that your company's name is Secure Data Backup. So that'll appear on all the screen captions. And the limit is 75 characters, so you can have it up to 75 characters. The next thing is the text on top of the print key form. When the client installs it, and it gives them an option to print the encryption key and all that. So there is a text that appears on that print key form. you can customize that. You can change this text, and the maximum allowed characters is 280 characters. So you can add some more important clauses and asking them to save it in a secure location and so forth. You can also have your own submenu options on the client. So this submenu option will appear under the help menu. So you can create, let's say you want them to take, you want them to see a menu option that takes them to your website, for example. So you can include your website address here, and the name of the menu caption will be my website, for example. Or if you have a tech support link, you can put in your tech support link if you have one. Or if you have an online best practices or online help, you can put that there. You can also have your own custom top-level menu option. What that means is it's a entirely new menu option. Let's say you can have something with technical support, and you can have up to 3 sub-menu options. So this will be a URL that takes them to the support page on your website or your contact information. So you can put any kind of menu option. So you can have up to 3 sub-menu options. If you have your own user license agreement, you can include that. It says it didn't find one and it's asking, do you wish to create one? Say yes to that, and it opens up a notepad, a text document, and you can just copy paste your user license agreement into this file here, into this notepad file.
This would be a good place to put your prices and maybe your contact information. This shows up during the installation just right after the RBS license agreement. And for your information, any contact, I think if you look at our license agreement, you see that it doesn't identify our company until the very end of the document. Otherwise, it refers to us as RBS. So we try to, we can't change that because our lawyers won't let us, but we've hidden our name way down at the bottom.
So you can copy paste your agreement in this file here and then save this file. So the license agreement, it will first show our license agreement and then it shows your license agreement. So let's move on. Any questions on the change text tab?
No.
Okay. Let's move on to the client logs. The client logs are really useful if you have different kind of plans based on different level of features or different service level agreement you have with the client. Like you can have a $9.99 plan where you don't want them to give the capability of backing any of the agents like System State, Active Directory, SQL, and Exchange. So you can exclude them. You can log those features so they won't be able to back those up. So you can, based on your different plans, you can create different installers with locking different capabilities. I think most of them lock the encryption key and method because they don't want them to change the encryption key just because they won't save the key file, and that could be a problem when you have to do a disaster recovery. So I've seen many people, many service providers lock that option. And let's see.
And when you say lock, you're turning them off. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. They won't be able to change the encryption key. Okay. You can also lock new backup set options, so they don't create their own backup sets, so they have to use the existing backup sets. You can even lock the entire file menu. You can also lock the delete files from server interface option, just because customers, they might unknowingly go there and select some files that they actually need and delete it, and then they might come back and ask you where the files are. So you might want to lock that option. So depending on your agreement and plan, you can lock certain features.
What do you find most people do with this? Do most of them lock all of it, or they lock?
No, most of them lock the encryption key method, and some of them lock the delete files from server. And if you already have predefined backup sets and you know for sure that they don't have to create new backup sets, you also lock the new backup set option. That's the most common. That's the most common locks that usually people set. And some people also set the scheduler, so they don't change the schedule time. So you can also lock the scheduler window too. So,
all right.
So it's up to you.
Question?
Yeah.
I think you can lock or unlock these later on through the server manager. Is that right?
Yes, there is a remote management feature on the server. So if you go to accounts and right click on a user and say remote manage, you can unlock it here.
Yep.
So if you can change the options here as well later on. And you can also change these logs on the client software too under admin options. So you can pre-customize it, or you can change it on the client side, or you can change it from the server too.
Very good.
So change display. This is where you change all the logos and the images. By default, it always points to the default splash screen. The splash screen is the one that comes up when you start the client software. It splashes an image for a few seconds. That's the splash screen. You can preview the default one. This is the default. So I'm going to change. I have some custom files, so I'm going to replace them. So it's on my desktop. So this is the custom file. After you replace it, just basically point it to where your custom file is, and then you preview the file just to be sure that it's replaced. So that's the custom image. Now the dimensions for the splash file should be the same as the original format. So you can, if you go back to the help, the documentation, if you select the change display tab, you'll see all the dimensions here for the icons. Each of the icons has its own pixels, so make sure it matches whenever you design custom icons. Make sure, for example, RB icon icon.ico should be 32 by 32 pixels. RB icon 1 should be 16 by 16, and so there is dimensions involved here. Even for the splash and about screen, it has to be a particular size, so it can't be more than that. The about screen is something when you click on help and about on the client interface, that's when the about screen comes into play. So you can replace that as well. That's the about screen. You can also replace all the logos. So I have these custom logos right now, so I'm going to replace them. So click on replace, and the file names should also remain the same. So you can't change the file names. So once you've done all that, the RBS utility would have already copied everything to that particular installer folder. You can also change the exe icons. What that means is if you go to the client folder, there are some executable files. There are 3 executable files: R backup, RB client, and RBS update. You see the icons here. These are our icons. So you can replace the icons on these exe files too. Doing that will also change the icons in the add remove program as well. So you can point it to an exe file. Let's say I want to change the rbackup.exe, and then the icon file should be 32 by 32 pixels, which is the same as rbicon.ico. You can use that. So once you click on change and go back to this client folder, you see that it changed the icon of this exe file. So similarly, you select the other exe files and click on change and change the RBS update, and that's it. There are 3 exe files. So you see now all these are with your custom icons.
I might like to
recommend display.
I'd like to recommend an icon manager if you don't have one. Do you guys need a recommendation for that? Something that will create the icon? We've used a thing called IcoFX.
I've seen that recently.
It's a nice piece of software, and it'll help you to design good icons. Also, we have somebody who works for us who can design an entire set of icons and graphics for you for, I think it's about $250. The guy takes about a week or 2 to do it, but you give him a basic sketch, and he'll come up with everything you need.
Okay.
We'll pass his name on to you if you want. Just give us a call.
Do you have a website for that icon maker?
I'll look it up right now.
Okay. Any questions on change display?
Yep, I've got it here. It's called icofx.com, icofx.com.
Thank you, Rob.
Yep.
Okay. So the next tab here is the basic settings tab. This is where you define some defaults, settings for the client. You can default the encryption method. So that will be the default that comes up when they select the encryption method. So by default, we usually select Blowfish, and Blowfish is the most secure. It's 448-bit encryption, and it's the fastest encryption algorithm. So you can choose Blowfish. Triple DES is good, but it's also slower. So,
Callum, can I interrupt for just a minute?
Sure.
I'm sorry. That URL was wrong. It's icofx.ro.
RO.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, it's free? Okay. Okay. The transfer verification, I think we talked about this yesterday. Transfer verification is basically telling the client when to verify the file transfer. So after a file is transferred to the server, it does check some verification and other kinds of bit checking and all that to make sure that the file has made it across successfully to the server. The recommended method is file by file, so that's the default, so you can leave it as that. There is no significant speed increase or backup. I mean, there is no significant speed up in the entire backup process if you select add-in. It's very minimal, so you can choose file by file. Log level, I would say set it to standard or detailed. Verbose logs can become really huge, so I would recommend using standard or detailed. If you use the email notifications where it attaches the email log as a zip attachment, if you're using verbose, in some cases, if the backup set is huge, the emails might not come across because of the size of the zip file. So I would recommend using detailed. That should pretty much give you all the information that you would need. Processing priority, leave it as normal. Temp path location, by default it's a CTEMP bar backup location, but if you want to default it to something else, you can do that as well. The bit backup reference location is also set to CTEMP bar backup. You can change it to something else as a default. Exclude by file attributes. This is where you can exclude file types based on attributes. So you can tell it not to back up any hidden files. You can tell it not to back up any read-only files, temporary files, or the system files. I would recommend using including system and temporary, but not read-only, just because some applications have their databases or files in read-only mode. Like I think QuickBooks have their files in read-only mode sometimes. So I would choose system and temporary by default. Run schedule at startup is if a computer restarts, if there was a missed schedule, the client will launch the schedule on startup. So you can turn this feature on. Always store catalog is to send the catalog file, which is the backup.mdb file, to the server, even if there is no files qualified for backup. I would recommend turning this on as well. Hide backup progress screen and stealth mode. If you're already using the Windows Task Scheduler and using the local system account, these options are muted. I mean, you don't have to choose these options, because if you're running it under the the system account, it already runs as a background process, so there won't be any visible screens. But if you want to, you can check the hide backup progress screen. So what that means is it won't show the progress window during scheduled backups. And stealth mode is it won't have any of the splash screen or any of the startup screens when doing a scheduled backup.
Now you'd want to do
it
that.
runs as a background process.
You'd want to do that in a case where you're integrating with another piece of software. So you might have a menu choice on another piece of software that says do a backup now, and you wouldn't want it to display anything at that point. Also, some people schedule backups to happen during the daytime, and that's when they don't. The backup progress screen can pop up and interrupt ongoing work.
Right. So that's the basic settings tab. The next tab and the last one is the advanced tab. These are advanced options. In most cases, most of them are already set to the default or the recommended options, but let's go over them one by one, and I'll explain to you what it actually does or means. The queue limit is the number of files that are transferred at a time. Let's say the client, when it's doing a backup, it identified 1,000 files. What the client does is it selects the first batch of 250 files. It transfers the 250 files to the ctemp rbackup location, where it compresses and encrypts those 250 files. And then it moves to the transfer. It transfers all those 250 files, then clears the temporary location, and then gets the next batch of 250 files. So it's like batch processing. So that's the limit. The queue limit is the number of files in a batch. You can reduce this number to as low as 1, but setting it to 1 would slow the backup process. But if you're running out of room on the C drive or wherever the temporary file path location is set, you can change it to 10 or 25 or 100 or to a lesser number. In most cases, 250 is pretty good. I mean, that's the default, so you can leave it as that. The subfolder limit is the number of files in one data folder. A data folder is on the server. If you go under, let's see, if you go to the root directory on the server, in this case it's CRBS, and you see that it creates, these are data folders, 001, 002. For each session, the client creates a new folder. So the first backup, it creates 001. So the subfolder limit is the number of files that can be created in one data folder. So that is the limit here. So what this means is it will copy only 5,000 files in one of the data folders. But if there is more than 5,000 files in a backup set, it will create additional folders like 001, A01, and that will have another 5,000 files. And if there is more than 10,000 files, it will create a third folder called A02, and so on. So it will create subfolders. This is basically just because the way Windows acts. I think Windows, the Windows recommendation is you can have only up to 10,000 files in a single folder, but we set it to 5,000. So 5,000 is good. The timeout is the number of seconds that the client tries to connect to the server before it times out. 60 is a good or recommended value. But if you have a client that is on dial-up or very slow outbound connection, you might want to increase it to 120 or something. Store name characters is the number of characters of the original file name that gets appended to the encrypted file names. So if you set it to like, let's say 55, that's the max you can set. What that means is if you go back to one of these encrypted file names, you'll see that this is the encrypted file name. So if you set the store name characters to 55, you will see the original file name appended to this. So the original file name will be appended here. So the first 55 characters of the original file, the file name itself will be appended to the encrypted file name. So on your server, you'll see the file names, or it'll give you an idea of what kind of files you're backing up. I think this breaks HIPAA compliance here, right, Rob? I mean, if you set this option. Rob, are you there? Okay. I think Rob he stepped away. Are you guys still there?
Yeah. Say, what would you, excuse me, what did you say now about that? It does.
I think it violates the HIPAA compliance.
HIPAA, okay. All right.
Yeah, I think HIPAA compliance, one of the clause tells you that even the file names should be encrypted. So, okay. I mean, if you're not, in most cases, everybody has this to 0. Some people have it to 55 just to see, to identify what files or to pick files to restore on the server side. You can have that. Show schedule. Show schedule is the system tray scheduler. You might have seen a small window near the system tray whenever the client starts. That shows you the next scheduled backup. We'll set it to true. You'll see the small window pop up near the system tray, which shows you the next scheduled backup. So if you want that window, you can set this to true. Retain logs is the number of days to retain the client-side logs on the client side. By default, it is 3 days. I would set it to 2 weeks. So you will have a record of the backup logs for 2 weeks in case you have to go back and for debugging or to find out if there is an exception or something happened. You might want to go back and take a look at the logs. But the logs are also available on the server side. With each backup session, the client sends a file called logs.zip. So every data folder on your server, you will also see this file, the logs.zip. So if you open the zip file, you'll see the corresponding backup log for that session. So the logs are also there on your server.
How long are the logs retained on the server, please?
As long as all the files within these are purged. So if all the files within a data folder are purged, then these logs and other system files also get purged. The entire data folder gets purged too. So it will be there until all the files inside that data folder is purged. Exclude temp files, set it to true. What that means is it excludes any file that has an extension of TMP. Start mode, if you want the client to default to simple interface mode, this is where you change that, and the client will always start with simple interface. Or if you want to start with advanced, you can set that as well. These three options, the bit backup folder limit, the max memory usage, and the speed level is for bit backup. So if you're not using bit backup, then you can ignore these. Bit backup folder limit is the number of files again in one folder in the local store. So if you use bit backup requires a local store. So in that local store directory, you will also see a data structure similar to what's on the server. So you will see 001, 002 in the local store as well. So you're basically telling the number of files that it can have in one folder. Set it to 10,000, that's fine. Max memory usage is, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, is that okay for that to be different then than the subfolder limit?
Yeah, it's
on the
fine.
left?
Yeah, it's fine. Memory usage is already set to max, but if the system is running low on resources, and if you see the client is using a lot of processor and memory usage when doing bit backup, you might want to reduce this if it is affecting other operations. But otherwise, just leave it as default. Speed is set to 4, which is the optimum setting. You can increase the speed, but it'll use up a little more resources, like a processor and the CPU usage will go high if you increase the speed. So speed level is basically the speed of the patch creation, or how fast the bit backup file gets created. That's the speed. Now these two options, install client as a service and open files agent, you might have seen it when you install the client. So install client as a service, if you don't, I mean the default is ask, so it will prompt the user to make a selection, but I would recommend saying it either yes or no by default. Since you're using the Windows Task Scheduler, you can as well install it in application mode by default. So that should be just fine. And Open Files Agent, I would recommend just saying yes, so it doesn't prompt the user. It automatically installs it, but it does require a reboot. So if you install Open Files Agent, in all cases you have to reboot the computer. That's the advanced options. Any questions on any of these options?
No.
Okay. So once you go through all these tabs and done with all your changes, click on Apply, and that will take into effect all the changes that you made. And now we are ready to build an installer. So you can click on the Build Client Installer, and let's build a client exe installer. I'm just gonna put it on my desktop. And this icon again, you can customize this icon, so you can select the 32 by 32-bit icon for this as well. Click on Make exe.
I noticed that it puts the dash setup on all those files. Does it have to have that on there?
Yes, so that's because of Vista.
Okay.
Because of Vista requires name, the file name setup in the any exe file name.
Okay.
So
It'll run, though, without that. It asks a lot of questions, a lot of
Yeah.
warnings.
yeah. So but
Can
I would.
just ask, is
yeah.
this different than the exe we created earlier?
No, it's the same one.
Same one.
Okay.
We've just customized the icon.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I see.
So if you see on the desktop, this is the file here.
Uh,
Let me minimize that. So this is the exe file, and you can see it has your customized icon on it. So this is the self-extracting exe file. Let's see. The next topic is, I think we already covered best file selection defaults. Let's go through the introduction of setup files. The setup files are actually is that the client installer files, Rob, or you're talking about the INI files in the reg file?
The setup files are all of the text-based files.
Okay. If you go to C program files, RBS server and the client, this is your client installer folder. So all these are the client installation files. Sort the files by file type, and if you scroll down a bit, you'll see some of the INI files.
At this point, it might be a really good idea to take a look at the server's documentation under, let's see, customizing and installing the client's software. And then, let's see here. Where are all of these things? Advanced customization and branding. And then there is the setup and initialization file, the registry settings file, the text substitution file, and the installation options file. And then I can show you how to edit the client's help file. And also we've got the batch files that run before and after each backup set. And then we've also got a way to run the client installation in silent mode, which we probably shouldn't get into today. Let's get into that during tomorrow.
Yeah, we are covering the update engine tomorrow.
Yep, okay.
Okay, the setup files, one of the main files is the rbackup.reg file. So if you go into the client folder, you'll see rbackup.reg. You can right-click and edit that file. It opens up in Notepad. And all these options are your customized icons. The customized client installer that you used right now, some of those values are stored in this file. For example, we created a menu option. You'll see those options here. But there are some options, like yesterday, I think Jim mentioned pause mode. That's not part of the customized client installer, so you might have to manually edit this file and include the pause mode registry key option. There are other options. If you go into the help file on the server and look at this registry settings file, this explains some of the options that are not part of the customized client installer, and it gives you an explanation about the rbackup.reg file. And you have to edit one of these files to configure the update engine, which we'll cover tomorrow. So basically, this is the reg file that you can customize and put in all your registry keys. There is also a document that I came up with a couple of weeks ago. It's on the knowledge base. So if you go to our website and click on knowledge base, search for registry. And This is the one, custom registry options explained. This particular article explains most of the registry keys on the client side and what it does. So if you drill down, you'll see all this registry keys and the recommended values. So most of them are explained here. So you can go through these, and if you want to manually edit the registry file, you can edit the rbackup.reg file. But do this before you build the client installer. So you should be doing this before you build the exe installer. But these are all the registry keys.
The reg file is just a standard registry import or export file. It gets executed by the installer, by the client's installer. So you can actually put anything you want in there as long as you keep it in the correct format. You can have it edit the registry for other programs if you want. Just make sure that it's in the correct format. And almost any registry key that's available in the client software can be added here and changed.
So once you make changes, just save the file. That's the registry file. There is another file. There are some INI files. The keycap.ini, this is a print text that you basically, this basically it's editable by the customized client installer, so there is no need to manually edit this file. But just for information, that's the file that stores the text for the print key form. And there is another file called rcap.ini. This is the form captions. So you can actually change it here if you want to. Let's see. Let's move on to the pre and post batch files. The client, there are two batch files included. It's 0 byte files right now, but you can program into these files. The client, whenever it does a backup, whenever it does a scheduled backup, it always executes the pre-rbs.batch file. So you can right click and edit, and let's say you want to move a file from, say, another machine to a local machine, or you want to perform some other action like closing Outlook or shutting down SQL server or Exchange services. You can do all kinds of things. This is basically a command line option that you would run before a backup set begins. So you can include anything that you want to do before the backup job. The most common things people use this file is to shut down applications, shut down certain services, to move certain files. Let's say there is a file on a different machine, but they want to copy it first locally and then do a backup of that. So you can do all kinds of things. And you can also copy files by shutting down applications. So you can tell it to stop Outlook and then copy the Outlook PST file to another drive, to another folder someplace, and then to restart Outlook in the same batch file itself. So Outlook need not be closed while the entire backup process is finished. So you can quickly run some batch file commands to do all kinds of things. So the pre-rbs.batch file gets executed at all times. So if you include commands, it will execute them. And similarly, post-batch gets executed when the backup is finished. So that's the last thing that the client does before finishing the backup session. So you can include post-batch commands if you want to, and you can restart applications or do some kind of file-level programming using command lines. You can also, let's say you have multiple backup sets and you want to execute the batch files only for one backup set. You can also create a specific, let's say you have a backup set called blank or a daily backup, for example. So you can create a pre-batch file just for that backup set. And the way to do that is you have to just name the file pre-dailybackup.bat. So if you name it that way, only the daily backup, when it's doing a scheduled backup, this batch file gets executed. It doesn't get executed when another backup set is running. So you can include another file for post backup too. So create another file, call it post-dailybackup.bat, and you can then again edit this file and include your own command line options. And only if a daily backup runs, it will execute these files. So that's customizable for a backup set.
And these will be distributed with the clients
Yes.
and then installed in the programs file folder of the installation
Yes.
for the
Mhm.
client?
Yes. So you can include this and then build a client installer.
Quick question. Excuse me.
Yes.
To keep somebody from changing that, if you mark that hidden somehow, would it still run it?
Yes, it will still run it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But don't make it read-only. It can be
Okay.
hidden, but it shouldn't be read-only.
That's actually a really good idea. I hadn't thought of doing that. I like that.
Yeah. So those are the batch files. Let's see what else we have. We're going to cover the help file customization tomorrow, so that's tomorrow. Registration wizard files also will be covered tomorrow. So that's about it about the setup files. Let's move on to let's see. Do we have to cover the CL setup file today, right, Rob?
Yes.
Okay. Let's take a look at the help file again. Going back there, look at the section which says the installation options file. That's under advanced customization and branding. The installation, this is the actual INI file that the installer uses. So that's the CL setup INI. So whenever the installation starts, the install shield, we use install shield to build the installer. It reads this file and gets all the settings from here. So if you go through this help file here, the CL setup is also in the client folder. If you go under the client folder, you can open it in Notepad, and this is the CL setup file. Here there are certain options and text that you can change that the installer uses. So you can change this to secure data backup. That will be your product name, and you can put in your company name. And then this will be the screen captions on all the installation forms. So the caption of the installer itself. So you can change it to secure backup. You can change the target directory. Instead of C program files remote backup, you can tell it to go to C program files secure data backup. The folder name again should be the same. You can change the help title. All of these options are individually explained in the help file, so you can give that a reading to understand each of them, what it exactly does, but it's self-explanatory in most cases. Like the publisher, that will be your company name.
That's the thing that shows up in the add remove programs. It's pretty important to explain some of these things.
Okay.
And I'll do this if you want. The publisher shows up in the add remove programs. There's a little link there that says more information, and that will show the publisher of the software and the owner and the URL. So if somebody goes to add remove programs, you'll want this to be yours instead of our name.
And I think URL is also part of the add remove programs.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So you can take it, tell it to go to your website. The name of the user license file, I wouldn't recommend changing it, but if you change it here, you have to change it in the client folder. If you go in the client folder, you'll see a file called userlicense.txt. This is your license agreement. So if you change the file name in the CL setup file, you have to change the file name in the client folder as well. But I would recommend just leaving it as default. You can also include a check for updates shortcut. This is part of the update engine that we'll cover tomorrow. But you can have a menu option. It's not a menu option, it's a startup option. The startup menu option that appears in the start programs. If you click on start programs here. So right now, this is for the server. You can include an option similarly for the client. and you can call it check for updates. And if you have the update engine configured, you can have this shortcut too.
And if it's blank, it won't create the shortcut.
Right. Um, these are some of the feature options. You can disable the startup shortcut. The reason why you would need to disable the startup shortcut is if you have it running in services mode, or if you already have it scheduled. If you don't want it to launch whenever Windows starts, you can set it to yes, it won't put a startup object. If it's in services mode, I think it by default doesn't create a startup object. But if you don't want to start the program, the client program, whenever Windows was rebooted, you can set this option to yes, and the client application wouldn't start up. It is okay to disable the startup object because all your scheduled task is being launched by Windows, so it doesn't matter if the application is running. The desktop shortcut, if you want to disable the desktop shortcut, you can set it to yes, and the installer won't create a desktop shortcut. The welcome screen is the first screen that you see when you double-click on the installer file. It will pop up with a welcome screen. You can disable that screen too. You can disable the destination screen where you can change the directory. You can always default it to always install under C program files, secure data, or C program files remote backup, and not actually give a choice to the end user to change the directory. So if you want to disable the destination screen, you can set this value to yes. This is the shortcut command for the desktop shortcut. In some cases, you might not want to use or install rbackup.exe at all. The rbackup.exe is the system tray program that runs in the system tray. If you don't want that application to be even installed, you can disable this particular option, disable rbackup.exe. If you set this to yes, rbackup.exe will not be installed on the client system. If you set this to yes, then change this to rbclient.exe, so it launches the actual interface for you to make your file selections and other changes. Is there any particular reason, Rob, that you think to disable rbackup.exe? I know that
this is a Bob registry key.
Yeah.
When we have a client who comes up with all these great ideas. But if we want to implement them, but if we add a control on the software for these great ideas, then it'll really get cumbersome. It'll start looking like the space shuttle. So we decided to just put registry keys in for that. Bob decided that he didn't want to. He didn't. For some reason, his customers. I don't know why. I don't remember why.
He didn't want anything in the system tray running. He just wanted an automated way for backups to run in the background process.
Yeah.
So he didn't want any of the startup objects, any desktop objects, anything that runs in the system tray. So it works fine. I mean, the client, RB client is the main backup engine that does the backup. So rbclient.exe is the one that needs to be installed. So you can disable rbackup.exe and you need not have that running at all on the client side. But yeah, these options are basically these three options are to disable and to change the startup command, the shortcut command for the desktop shortcut. So if you want to disable that, you can use those options. Force reboot. If you want to force a reboot, no matter what, you can change this value to yes. And even if the installer doesn't have to reboot, it will tell the client to reboot the computer. I think this is part of integrating the software with some other application which requires a reboot. So you can force the client to always reboot the computer. And you can also include the text that gets displayed when that prompt comes. It will give you a prompt. You can type in command saying setup needs to reboot, or some message that you want to give to the end user. So it'll get he'll get a pop-up with that message, and if he clicks yes, it will start the reboot process. The test installer option is part of the update engine, and to create a silent installer, we'll cover that tomorrow. Um, and these are the title, captions, and messages for each of the installer forms. The first welcome screen, you can change the title caption. You can also change the text that appears in the installer. So you can change it to your company name, and you can change the text if you want to. This is for the license agreement. The third one is for the user license agreement. And the destination, you can give some information, change the destination folder. And that's the final screen. Okay. So these are all the install. This is basically the installer file, the INI file, clsetup.ini. So once you make all these changes, there is no interface for this. I think we will be coming up with that in a future release. But for now, we have to manually edit this INI file in Notepad and make changes. So once you make the changes, save the file, and there is another file. It's called setup.ini. That's also part of the installer. It's right here. This is also used by the installer, and I think there are only one or two options that you can actually change. The APP name, you can change this to the product name, secure data backup, and you can change the company URL to secure your website address. And I think those are the only two options that you can change. Is that right, Rob? I think Rob is left.
I was here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I had my thing muted. I wasn't sure. I didn't know I did. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the application name and the company URL. And this, again, is part of the add remove programs.
Well,
correct?
there is
When
one
you-
more thing you can change. There's
Okay.
of course, when we get into the silent installation, there's something that we can do here. But there's also one down here called something about, small progress. You can change that to a no. All that does is reduce the size. Change it to an N right there. All that does is reduce the size of to a little splash screen that pops up during the progress.
Okay. But yeah, the main things are application name and the company URL.
And don't mess with that product GUID.
Yeah. So those are the two files. The CL setup.ini is the main file. Setup.ini, if you want to, you can change that. But that's the only files that the installer, the customization of the installer is concerned. So let's create another installer because we made all these changes. Let's build another one. I'm just going to call it custom, and then create another installer file. Let's go to the installation. You can actually see all the customizations that we just did. So double click on this, and when you see the installer, you'll see all the customizations that we just did. Okay, you can see now it says Secure Backup Installation Wizard, and it says Welcome to Install Shield Wizard for Secure Data Backup. This program will install Secure Data Backup. Click Continue, and this is where our license agreement comes into play. And again, the screen captions are all customized. And this is where your license agreement comes. So they have to accept your license agreement. And when you click on Next, it says the destination is C program file secure data backup now.
Can I ask one question?
Sure, go ahead.
Go back one screen. I know Rob.
Oh.
All right, that's fine. I know Robin said something about maybe putting pricing there. Can that be changed where it says license?
Oh, sure it can.
Okay.
He typed that in, and we can show you how to do that as soon as
That's fine.
this gets done.
I just want to make sure it could be. I noticed that. So.
So we set it to reboot Is it going to reboot, Rob?
Let's see. It is, I think if
Let me
you
go back.
go,
I don't think I said it. Uh, the force reboot option. Okay, I think it will reboot.
I don't know if it's going to reboot. I think it will. But
Okay.
why don't you go into the, at this point it's finished with the installation, and this is in the, this
Yeah,
is at the end.
I'm
So
just gonna, yeah, I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm not gonna click on OK to that.
why don't you go to
But
the
yeah,
Task
this is-
Manager and end it?
Oh yeah. Okay.
That's one thing about this software. It does exactly what you tell it to do.
That is the desktop shortcut. You can see it's customized with your logo, and it has your product name, and that's the customized splash screen. And we had the show schedule option set to true. If you remember that, that displays the scheduler window, the system tray. That's the scheduler window. It always shows the next scheduled backup. You can actually close it if you want to, but if you right-click and click on backup schedule, you can see the next backups schedule. The window pops up again. As you can see, the logos are all customized with the custom logos, and the caption here says secure data backup, select registration. So I'm just going to use demo. This is the text. Oh, okay. I didn't tell you about this particular text. This is also customizable. This is part of the NINI file. It's called keycap.ini, the key caption. So you can include more text here or edit the text here if you want. And this is the text that pops up where they select the encryption key and method. So you can type in your own encryption key. And this again displays your own custom logo with your custom text. So again, in this simple interface, you'll see that it replaced our logo with your logo. That's the about screen, I think, the about rbabout.bmp file. So that's your company's logo, and it says secure data backup, and it's got your logo there. Let's see. Let's switch to the advanced interface because I think we need to include some menu options. The custom menu options that we created are only part of the advanced interface for now, but we're going to include it. This is the custom menu option that we built, that we customized in the client utility, the RBS utility. So that can be a tech support site. It will take you to your website support and the help. I also had another option for my website, and there is also a start help desk option. This is a new feature that's coming out. So you'll have a help desk feature in the next. Yeah, that's part of that's one of the new features of the next release.
Got them. We lost you again for about 10 seconds there. Right after you start talking about the help desk.
Yeah, the help desk feature is something new that is coming out with the next release. What the help desk feature allows you is to take control of your client computers. So we will give you a program or a help desk feature. So from the RBS manager, you'll actually be able to start up the viewer part of it. There will be a viewer, help desk viewer. You start that, and you tell your clients to go in here, and they'll start the help desk session here, and you'll be able to take control of your client computer remotely. So that will be an included feature. I think it's part of priority maintenance, so it will be part of the next release. The about screen, like you see, is your customized image as well, and it says secure data backup version 10.1.68. and it also has your default incremental backup that we customized, and it should have already created a scheduled task for you. So so you see it already has a scheduled task, so you don't have to manually go and edit the scheduler again, because the scheduler, the Windows task schedule job is already there. So once you install it and register it, you're already done with installation of the software. It will start doing backups on a scheduled basis. Any questions about customization?
None at this time.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's move on to the restore agents. We have two restore agents. If you go back to the customized client installer, you'll see a new option called build restore agent. You select that option, and you'll see two kinds of agents. One is the web restore agent, and the second one is the disk restore agent. The web restore agent allows your clients to restore files from any computer. So they can be on the road, in some browsing center, and if they need a file, they can download this agent from your website, and they can restore the files on any computer. So they don't need the client software. So that's the web restore agent. The way it works is you basically build the installer. You put in the server's public IP address or the domain name and the port number, and you give it a name, a exe file name, call it web restore. Select a destination where you want to build the executable. You can also customize the logo of that exe file and click on build installer. So it creates a web restore agent executable, and that's the executable. It's about I think it's about 2 megs in size, which is pretty small. All you have to do is put this exe file on your website and give it a link someplace for your clients. What happens is, let's say your client is on the road and he wants to restore a file. He can download this agent from your website, and he can download and run this file, and installs the web restore agent on any computer. And once the installation is complete, he will need the encryption key file though. The key file is required because of the encryption and security. He needs to have the key file to be able to restore. But if he also knows his username, password, and encryption key, he can type it into. So he can either choose to use the key file and browse for the key file, or he can manually type in the username, password, and encryption key. So since I know the username, password, and encryption key, I can do this. Or once you do that, I think I didn't do a backup, so let me do a backup first, and I'll get back to this. I'm just going to select a few files and run a small backup. Okay. So now going back to the restore agent, the encryption key I used was test, I think so. So if they know the username, password, encryption key, you type it in, and when they click next, it will automatically connect to your server, download the latest catalog file, and it comes up with the restore interface. So they basically do a search and restore the file to a redirected location, and they start the restore, and it will restore the file. So, so that's how the web restore agent works. It's very easy. I mean, once they're done with the restore, if you close this, sorry?
I just said that's really good.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And once it's done with the restore, if you close this form, if you close the restore form, it will uninstall the program and delete all the temporary files that it used and clears up everything from that system. So it doesn't leave any traces locally. So once you once you're done with the restore, you close this. It will say the agent will be removed now, and it will uninstall itself from this machine. So that's the web restore agent. So you can post it on your website and give a link to your clients. But the requirement again is to have the key file, or they must know the encryption key. Any questions on that web restore?
Yeah. No,
No.
it's brilliant.
Okay. The next one is the disk restore agent. The disk restore agent, the purpose of this agent is to, let's say you have a client who has huge amounts of data on your server. Let's say he has 50 gigs of data lying on your server. He has to do a disaster recovery. There's no possible way he can finish restoring 50 gigabytes of data online in a timely fashion. So what you can do is you can build this disk restore agent, and you can, let's say the user's data resides under CRBS. I mean, you have to go under the root directory. You just copy all this data and you put it in an external drive or a USB drive, and you ship this data, the encrypted data, along with this particular agent. You can put this agent in the same USB drive, and all the end user has to do is run the disk restore agent, and he'll be able to restore all the data from that external drive. So it doesn't need to connect to the server. It doesn't need to do anything. So I'll show you how it works. So you just give it a name. Just call it disk restore. I'm going to put it on the desktop, and you can customize the logo and build the installer. And okay, that's the disk restore installer, and it's about 2 MB in size still. So now let's say I want to ship the encrypted data for demo in an external drive. So what I would do is copy these files, and let's say my external drive is this USB folder. I'm going to copy this to my external drive. So this will act as my external drive, and I'm going to put this disk restore agent as well into this USB drive, and you basically ship this data to the end user. You ship the drive. It's always secure because all the data is encrypted. There's nothing anybody can do with this information because all the files are encrypted.
So that makes this compliant with all kinds of regulations like HIPAA and Sarbanes-Oxley and Gramm-Leach-Bliley.
Right. So it's all secure and encrypted. So once the end user receives the external drive, all he has to do is run this exe file, and that will install the disk restore. And again, he will need the encryption key file, or he will have to manually type it in. Let's say I have a key file. So I'm going to browse for my key file. It's in my key file directory. And I'm going to click on next. I'm just going to ask for the location of that external USB drive. So all he has to do is point it to the external drive letter, the USB drive letter, and click on OK. And then that's it. You click on next, and it pops up with this restore interface. And he basically selects all files and starts the restore, and he'll be done with disaster recovery. So that's how the disk restore agent works.
Is that brandable as well?
You mean the installer?
I noticed it didn't have the name. I think it said RBS on it when it pulled up one of the screens.
You mean, this one? No, this installer is not brandable right now.
Okay. All
Well,
right.
let's remove the words RBS from that then.
Okay. Yeah. Similarly, again, once you're done with the restore, it will uninstall it by itself. So once you close the restore interface, it uninstalls the program and removes all traces of temp files that it used. So this is a very good option that you can provide as a separate service level agreement. I mean, you can have a plan for some customers where you can offer them web restore and disk restore capabilities, and you charge them extra for that.
And also
You can do
archiving. We have some service providers who will archive old data and send it back to the clients for them to store on DVDs.
Yeah. Any questions on disk restore and web restore?
No.
Okay. Let's see. I think we've already covered the topics that we need to deal with today. Do you want to discuss something, any topics that you would like me to talk about?
Yeah, we're a little bit ahead of schedule today. We've gone over customizing the client installer using the RBS utility that's on screen right now. And let's see, I don't know if have we talked about the file selection defaults? The best selections.
Yeah, you mean the file selection method?
Mm-hmm. And as part of that, did we cover different ways that you can create vertical markets, different installers for different industries?
No, we haven't covered that.
I think it's a great thing. That's one of the best things I like about this. So when you're looking at this customization utility here, don't limit yourself to just one installer. You could come up with many different installers, one of them for the medical community and one of them for the accountancy community and one of them for, I don't know, video rental stores. You can even name the clients different things. You can have different logos. You can have different default backup sets for each one of them. Each one of them could be ready to go. So you could come up with one that backs up chiropractors and sell that into the chiropractic community as a backup specially designed for them. One of the things that some of our most successful service providers do is they use this ability of the software to do this, and then they partner with people who are selling software into those vertical markets so that they'll go ahead and go out and sell this with it.
When you do that, you have to create a new folder probably to keep all that separate from the other?
Yeah, I'll show you that. Let's say you created, right now it's customized and ready, right? When you go to build client installer, use this copy to a new folder.
Okay.
Click on browse, and what you do is go under C, make a new folder. Let's call it client packages, and create a new folder inside it. Call it let's say package 1, and if copy to folder and you copy all the client installation files to that new folder. So if you go under if you browse to that folder under C client packages, now this will be a particular set of installer for one vertical market. So this will be a separate set of installer for you. So if you want to go back and change something in that particular installer, that's what the change directory option is for. You click on this change directory location, you can point it to C client packages package 1 and say OK. It requires a restart of the program, so you click on OK and you basically restart it. If you go back now and restart the customized client installer, now the installer, the customized installer takes into default all the values from that particular package. So you can make any changes and then save the installer after you make any changes. So that's how you do it. You can create multiple packages, and if you have to go back and regenerate some package or make some changes, you can select that package and make your changes and apply it, and then build an installer. So that's how you do it.
Who have you, each of you, Jim and Paul, who have you selected as your default customers? Who you expect to go out and sell this to?
Well, for me, sorry, Rob.
Go ahead.
Right now, we've been just pushing this to our existing customers. We are an IT support company, and we just sell this to those. So when I want to expand the business, I've got to look for those markets. So I don't have anything defined yet for the new market.
Oh, okay. So you're looking for a direction.
This is interesting for me to see how you do that.
Right. This is it's a great way to come up with many different types of packages here, and if you can go in with something that's specifically designed for an industry, it sells better. And then it's also easier to sell on the business side of things. To sell and market this, it's easier to go into Dr. Smith and sell it to him when you can say, I've just sold this to Dr. Jones. And he uses the same software that you do. And Jim, what about you?
Originally, it started out as an add-on to an IT support. With the new setup here, we're probably going to attempt to contact people who are selling computers locally, building them and selling them locally, adding them on at that time, and offering them a percentage, of the income off of that.
Okay, like agents.
Correct.
Yeah, good.
And also trying to, I think one time I'd seen where you had done one for dental, trying to vertically to go after some of those markets.
Yeah, I think we did that as a demonstration for somebody else. One of our service providers has gone after a dental market, and specifically Dentrix, the software Dentrix. And so he sells that right along with the Dentrix software. Are you guys, do you want to, it sounds like both of you are selling into a tech-savvy crowd. Do you expect to sell this online where people can download it from your websites, or are you going to go out and install it yourselves? Or how do you expect to deploy this?
Good.
Well, it's Paul here. I think we're going to have two different solutions, really. One which is where all of these SQL Exchange features need to be included. That really needs quite a lot of thought and some technical expertise. Most of the people who will have a small business server don't have an IT support person, won't know how to do that. So we will sell a much more comprehensive backup solution where we install it, we set it up, and we monitor it. Whereas the average sort of really small business user, one or two PCs, they've got QuickBooks maybe, a load of Word documents and Excel spreadsheets, dead straightforward. They can look after themselves almost. So I think we'll see two different markets, not quite vertical as such, but two small businesses, either micro businesses or medium-sized businesses or small businesses that have a bit more requirement. So that's where I think we're going to be going.
Right. Okay.
I would have to agree. I think the only difference we would have would be if we have an agent who puts it on a system as a new system, we get them to contact us once they installed it, and perhaps give them find out exactly what they really need to back up, and make sure they're getting that done correctly.
Okay. So they're going to talk to you about all that technical stuff.
Correct.
They could also, you could even customize this for each agent. Each agent could have his own logo.
Correct.
So if you got a computer shop downtown, Jim's Computer Shop, you could get Jim's logo and build his own software out of it. He's going to love that.
I agree.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Really good idea.
Yeah.
I had a couple of questions, a bit more technical.
All right, go
One
ahead.
was whether to use the online installer or just create the exit.
Mm-hmm. The difference between the two is the online, the exe file requires several steps. So your page to describe how to download that is going to have at least 3 pictures on it. One of them from Vista with the possible warning messages that it can show when you download a program, and another when the browser finds or doesn't find the the digital certificate that's been used to sign it. If it's not signed, then you're going to get a gigantic warning message. So it's the difference is the user has to follow directions and do several things properly to get it installed, and he's going to get a lot of warning messages, especially from Vista. Now, that said, most Windows users are used to all that stuff anyway, so it might not be that big a deal in your case. With the online installer, it's already signed, and it's just a single click of a download. You might get a message at the top of the screen that says, "Is it safe? Do you want to run this application?" But the online installer is a Java-based thing, and so what it does is when you click the button, it downloads a little bit of Java, which looks around the drive to see what's already there. and then goes back and downloads only what's necessary. So the online installer is sometimes quicker. The EXE can be 25 megabytes. On low bandwidth situations, the online installer is better. Those are the only two real differences. The online installer is digitally signed, and unless you buy, it's signed with our certificate, and you don't have to re-sign it. The EXE file, you have to buy your own certificate. I think it's $800 a year if you don't want that warning to pop up. But users are used to it. The warning says the publisher of this application cannot be verified. Are you sure you want to run it? And with the digital signature, it says something a little less scary.
Okay.
How are you set for Windows 7? Are you already into that?
Yeah, we're working on
we're
that.
still
Okay.
Go ahead,
it's looking
G.
pretty good. I mean, 32-bit Windows 7 looks good, but we have to make some changes for the 64-bit version of it.
Okay. You have many people using 64-bit? Is that
You mean XP 64-bit or
Yeah, any of
2003?
them.
Yeah,
Yes.
there are many people using that. Yeah.
okay? Very good.
I think we will announce Windows 7 compatibility with the next release, hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Well, we will not be recommending that to our customers just yet.
Okay.
That's Windows, not RBS. They're still not
Yeah.
even taking up Vista yet, so.
I've got it installed on my systems here, both the 32 and 64-bit of Windows 7, and it looks much neater and much quicker than Vista. I like Windows 7 much better than Vista.
You've got good taste. Yeah. Can I just ask about updates to software? In the past, we did use the OLI. We've moved on to the .exe. Maybe I'll go back to OLI. I'll think about that. But is there much difference in using one or the other? Much the same, I guess, as the install.
It's the same installer. I mean, there's no difference. You still have to go through the customization part of it, but once you click on apply, if you have the online installer, after you get this message where it says distribution database initialized successfully, once you click OK, if you have the online installer agent installed, it will pop up another message box saying, do you want to apply the changes to online installer as well? If you say yes to that, then all your changes are copied to the online installer too. So yeah, but you have to keep upgrading the online installer as well. When we come up with upgrades, you have to upgrade the online installer plugin too.
Mm-hmm.
This new help file, online help file, is that going to be updated regularly? Is that something you?
Yes, that'll be updated regularly from now on.
Okay.
We changed the platform that we used to write that, and it makes it a whole lot
I like
quicker.
it. It looks much better.
Yeah, thank you. That's done with RoboHelp HTML.
One thing you mentioned, Rob, was about archiving data.
Mhm.
That's quite an interesting area for one of my clients in particular. They've got a lot of data which is useful but not very urgent, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How did you mentioned archiving the
Well-
how did you envision that working?
The customers that are using archiving right now have written scripts to do it. We will come up with an archiving function, not with this next release, but with a release after that. So there'll be an option, rather than delete a file, you'll be able to send it to archive, which is going to send it to cheaper storage somewhere. But the ones that have written it right now have written a script that just all it does is search the directory structure and look at dates, and it moves files off into a different directory structure, and then that's all it does, moves it to a different drive.
Yeah.
So-
this particular client needs to keep records for quite a long period of time.
Mhm.
They're almost never going to be used. It's some sort of compliance. So they need to keep 10 years worth of basically rubbish, but they need to keep it. And it's just a lot of stuff.
Well, we recognize
So
that.
that would be very useful.
That's why we're doing it. We've got all those regulations in the United States as well, and what we plan right now is to have a check mark in the backup set. So on a set-by-set basis, you'll be able to put a check mark that says, yeah, right here on this screen that we're looking at, in fact. There'll be another check mark that says archive rather than delete.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So I don't think I've got any more questions.
Okay. All right. Well, we finished a little early today. That's good, I guess.
That never usually happens when I'm working.
No, it hardly ever happens to us. We love to talk. Tomorrow, I think it's going to be a little. We'll be right on time with tomorrow. Okay, so today we covered all of the stuff we were supposed to cover in Tech Session 2, Advanced Customization. Tomorrow is Tech Session 3, Advanced Customization 2, and this involves the Registration Wizard, the Online Installer plugin. These are two of our nicest plugins, and also the Editing the Client's Help file and special client installations that involve Exchange and SQL and Domino. We're going to show you how to install on those. We're going to take a look at a best practices document. We will explain the RBS update utility, which is a really nice thing. And then we'll talk about website integration and automatic registration systems. It would be great if the two of you could think a little bit about how you want to integrate this with your website. So tomorrow we can actually use your examples. If we can show you some examples of how other people have done it. And then we could tell you how it was done and maybe show you some source code. So be thinking about that. That'll take up a little time. And any last questions?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Not at this time either.
Okay. Well, thank you both for being here. And G,
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. And
Okay, thanks.
So we'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same station.
Have a good night.
Right. You too. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Great
you
stuff.
too. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Good night. Good night.
Good night.